According to worldhunger.org, there are 925 million people in the world today that aren't getting enough food to eat. That is more than US, Canada, and Europe combined. This graph shows where these people are. They're mainly in Asia and the Pacific, but they're all over in smaller amounts. This upsetting and disturbing number can easily be reduced by the acceptance of GMO crops. These GMO crops will increase the amount of food we can produce per acre of land. But to do this, we need people to start accepting them so that food processing companies will run these GM crops through their plants. A lot of people don't really understand what genetically modified crops are, but they still don't accept them and think they're dangerous to their health, just because some activist says that they are harmful. According to freedictionary.com, the definition of a genetically modified organism is an organism whose genetic characteristics have been altered using techniques of genetic engineering. This is done by transferring DNA molecules from a different source and combining them into one molecule to create a new set of genes, allowing for increased yields and many other desired traits. This diagram shows the process. The top DNA molecule has a specific gene that they want to put into the bottom DNA molecule. After they transfer it, the bottom molecule will have those desired genes or traits, which could be anything from disease resistance or pest resistance. A subset of GMOs is transgenic organisms, which has DNA inserted to it from a different species. That may sound kind of confusing or scary than it actually is. So I'll give you some interesting facts and some advantages of these GM crops. These crops can be genetically modified to make the crop resistant to disease, pest, environmental factors, and even increasing yields. By having crops that can be resistant to these factors, we can reduce the amount of pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers we need to grow these crops. Even though all of these chemicals go through many years of testing to make sure that they are safe for us and the environment, it will still reduce any risk or possibility of an accident, spill of chemicals, or anything along those lines. And in my opinion, it will just make the crops safer for us and the environment by reducing the amount of chemicals needed for them. One thing that these GM crops can do that I feel would be extremely beneficial is that they can be manipulated to have genes that give them more nutritional benefits. This could be extremely useful for the hundreds of millions of people in underdeveloped countries and could save millions of lives. Another plus to these GM crops is that they will reduce the use of equipment and reduce the CO2 and fuel usage by not having to spray nearly as much and do as much tillage in the fields. In 2007, GM crops have saved 15.6 million tons of CO2 through reduced herbicide and pesticides and reducing tillage. This is equal to 6.3 million cars off the road today. The global value of GM crop market is $7.5 billion in 2008, so they could even help our poor economic status. In my opinion, these positives that I just stated, not to mention the feeding the 925 million hungry people in the world today, outweigh the few negatives that Greenpeace and other activists are worried about. A lot of you may not know this, but GM crops have been in commercial production since 1996. These GM crops have been modified for resistance to insects, such as the Bt gene in corn, which makes the plant resistant to the European corn borer. This has led to a huge reduction in the use of pesticides for corn. Another widely used GMO today is Roundup Ready soybeans, corn, and Liberty-Link canola. These GM crops have led to the ability to spray the chemical Roundup on the crop, which usually kills it. This has also led to a huge reduction in the amount of chemicals needed to control the weeds in the field, along with increasing the yields by reducing weed competition. These are two great examples of GMO crops that have had only positive effects on the environment and agriculture. Today, 70% of corn in production is genetically modified, and around 90% of soybeans are genetically modified in production today. These are two large parts of the U.S. diet, and I'm sure every one of us has had a food product with corn or soybeans in it today or in the last few days. Since they have entered the market almost 14 years ago, they have not had one instance of harming humans or the environment, proving that they are safe and need to be accepted by everyone. As we all know, the world population is growing at a rapid pace, and with 925 million hungry people around already, this world hunger problem is only going to grow. Every acre of land that can be put to production already is, so we need to find a way to increase the amount of food we can produce per acre of land. We can do this by just more widely accepting the use of GMO crops. I hope that today you all will have a positive view on GM crops and will accept the fact that we need them to feed the world.